This is James Taylor, and you're listening to The Creative Life. The Creative Life podcast is a show created for you, the creative. If you're looking for inspiration, motivation, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's a musician, writer, artist, designer, performer, educator, or creative entrepreneur. They share their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, their insights, and much, much more. This episode is sponsored by C-School, the online school for creativity training. If you'd like to unleash your creative potential and access a free Creativity Blueprint training series, then just head over to c.school. That's www.c.school for your free training series. In today's episode, I speak with Rachel Brenke, and we speak about content marketing for creative entrepreneurs, batch writing, artificial intelligence, and becoming the go-to expert in your niche. Enjoy this episode. Hey there, it's James Taylor, and I'm delighted today to welcome onto the show Rachel Brenke. Rachel is the founder of the Business Bites podcast and several successful legal niche brands, including TheLawTog, FitLegally, and BlogLegally. She is also a mother of 5, wife to an Army veteran, practicing lawyer, author, photographer, cancer survivor, and Team USA athlete. Through her podcast, brands, and one-on-one services, Rachel helps creative entrepreneurs with business strategy and legal needs such as business formation, contract drafting, and business and intellectual property law. As an entrepreneur in each of these industries, Rachel has a pulse on the pain points and needs of these fellow entrepreneurs. My great pleasure to have her on the show with us today. So welcome, Rachel.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So share with everyone what's going on in your world just now.
Oh, listening to that makes me exhausted. Then I realized that's the life I'm living in. No, I love it. There's a tons going on, and I'm glad that you kind of snuck the lawyer thing in there, because when people hear lawyer, they're not really that thrilled. They think we're boring and don't want to listen to us. But yeah, I'm gearing up for a lot of stuff in my career, in my personal life. Really busy time. It's summer here in the States, so the kids are out for the summer. I've been trying to take a lot more time with them, and just balancing that with the awesome growth that we're having in the different businesses. So
I may be in one of those strange camps. I actually love lawyers. In fact, I love lawyers so much. I'm married to a lawyer. That's how much I love lawyers. But often when I'll be at these events, and my wife has a lot of kind of fellow legal colleagues and judges and stuff there as well, I'm always interested to know what drew them to the law in the first place. Was there a particular moment, or was there a TV show or movie that they watched? What was it that made you want to move into the law?
This is kind of a loaded question. I think it's important to note that I was an entrepreneur before becoming an attorney. So, you mentioned in the introduction that I have a pulse on the pain points and everything of what's going on in different industries. And it's so true, because I'm in the trenches still, and I started there. It was through my entrepreneurial journey of different, because I have different income streams, and I always have since the very beginning, that I started realizing this need for legalities. I was already going through school for business while I was also building my businesses, and just saw this huge gap in the market and all this misinformation that was leading many entrepreneurs down really detrimental paths. They were building businesses, then losing it over simple legal mistakes. And I decided that, I love the law, and I wanted to do everything right for myself. And it probably would have been cheaper to hire my own attorney. Instead, I went to law school on my own, and I love it. I do have my own law firm now with a partner. That's one of the businesses that I run. And my mission is to, just like I said, and how I even got here, was to make sure that other entrepreneurs aren't making these mistakes that can take away their businesses from them.
So when you're at meetings, maybe at conferences, events where you have lots of entrepreneurs there, and when they come up to you and you start having a conversation and they learn that you're a lawyer, what are often those kind of one or two pain points that you'll hear time and time again from entrepreneurs?
The top things include maybe issues they're having with their customers or clients, and how can they fix that? And my response would be use of contract or purchase terms, making sure everything is explicitly outlined. Other questions are in the realm of intellectual property, when people are posting images to Instagram or blog posts or social media updates. And so those are the two major things that I see. Another big pain point that is a fear in many entrepreneurs, especially if you're family, and I use the term family, it could be just you. It could be you and a partner, it could be you, partner, and kids. But it's if your family or yourself depends upon your income, they're really scared of losing this and losing the entrepreneurial piece that they've built. And so it's just kind of all this other general liability. What are some steps that they can take to make sure that the time, money, and energy they've put into building their brand and their business is not just going to be ripped out from under them? And so we go through different things like business structures they can choose, some of the top legal issues, because honestly, entrepreneurs don't know what they don't know. And that's how I ended up here. And my goal is to try to give them that information. But those are the big ones. Being able to outline expectations to customers properly, what to do with intellectual property, and kind of just how to protect themselves from liability.
Now, one of the things that I thought was really interesting about you is how you use niche brands or niche blogs in order to drive traffic into your business. So it's a really great kind of content marketing strategy there as well. I do wonder, because you're producing so much content all the time. Where do you go for your ideas? Where do you go to, you've got TheLawTog, you've got FitLegally, you've got BlogLegally, and you have other things alongside that as well. Where do you go to find inspiration for those new stories, those new things that you want to tell your audience?
It's a little cheating because my audience tells me what they want to know. And then I take my knowledge to fill in the gaps and kind of to look at things that they're missing. And since I am active in all these spaces, all of the niche blogs that I have built, all are something that I'm intimately involved with. So TheLawTog, I provide photography services to my clients. I do online blogging, obviously, so BlogLegally. I know the questions and things that people run into. And then for FitLegally, I'm a sponsored athlete as well. So I work with brands a lot and see their top questions. So for me, it's a little cheating, but anybody that's listening, I always advise, if you don't know what content to put out there, just shut up and listen, because your customers or your audience will tell you what you should blog about. I mean, you may not be able to say, what do y'all want me to blog about, and them answer, but you just start getting into Facebook groups. You start looking on social media posts of how they interact. Go to local business networking events and hear what other business owners are asking questions about, or whatever the applicable client avatar you have. Find where they're at and just listen. And it will give you the content. So I call it cheating, but let's actually call it smart marketing.
So, and all this content you're putting out there, I'm guessing you've really figured out a way to make writing into a routine, something that really just kind of part of your day, part of your week. So talk us through that process. I mean, how are you kind of that kind of person that's first up in the morning, you're writing then? Do you do it in blocks of writing? How do you kind of organize your content creation?
So let me give a little context though here. You're looking at over the result of 10 plus years of work so far. So I didn't build all these brands at one time. I will start with one, get it to a fairly sustainable level, and then I open up another one. And so I do have sustainment of content that I have to create, but I don't want entrepreneurs listening thinking, oh my God, I can't even handle one. How is she setting up 3 or 4 at one time? I'm not setting them up at one time. They are one, I get to a level, then I move to the next. But the only way that I can even get one to a level is really through scheduling. And you kind of just touched on it a bit about block or batch writing. And for me, my schedule, because I have so much going on, I have specific brands on specific days. And within those days, I have blocks of time that is specific to different tasks that I need to do. I sound like I could jump tracks really quickly, but for me, it's very ineffective and inefficient for me to start a blog post over here and have to stop and go answer an email. I work better in those blocks of time. So I get all my content writing done at one time, all my podcast recordings done in one block. It just helps for mindset and to be way more efficient that way. And if my schedule does permit, I much prefer content creation to actually occur at the beginning of every quarter, because that's how we formulate the marketing plan for each of the brands. And so I already know what month is going to have what theme, what content I need to have. And if I can just sit down and mass write for the first week of a quarter, if schedule allowing, then that is way easier for me to do than even this weekly scheduling of having 3 to 4 hour blocks of writing, because inevitably something happens, life happens, kids get sick, or I need to schedule a client call, and it can start cutting into my content creation time. And since content is a pivotal part of online marketing, I don't care what industry you're in, you should be doing, at least in the initial stages of your business, should at least be doing content marketing. So if you need to carve off a couple of weeks at the beginning of a quarter to get everything written or recorded for the quarter, do it. Do what you need to do to get it done. I just prefer the block creation of different content.
And essentially, we're also seeing a bit of a change here in terms of, especially in the business community and the entrepreneurial community, of how people are finding out about the kind of lawyers that they would want to work with. I'm thinking, not that long ago, it always felt like, well, lawyers seem to do a lot of their business on golf courses and, those kind of places. And now you have like people like yourself, great content marketers. I've just, obviously all us entrepreneurs, we've just gone through a big thing with GDPR. Everyone's having to, whether you're in Europe or not, everyone's had to kind of think about it, especially if you're selling anyway online, you're handling data. So I noticed there was one lawyer, I think she's based in the UK, who just completely dominated the space. And she did Susan Dibble is her name. I haven't remembered her name. She did a phenomenal job of using content and a very simple course, very simple product in order to get people into the top of her funnel. I'm sure she's got a lot of business in terms of long-term clients from that as well. So are you starting to see that more generally in the world of law, where you're starting to see them really take on content marketing and kind of own marketing in that way, where previously it was considered, well, there's a marketing department for this legal firm?
Mm-hmm. So we're at an interesting place in the legal industry right now, because we still have the old school lawyers that are practicing, but in 10, 20 years, they're going to be on their way out the door. And we're also seeing a lot of graduates who have grown up always knowing Facebook and Twitter and online marketing and content creation. So I feel like we're at the beginning of this wave, because I'm starting to see it more and more. And that was one of the great things about when I came out with my initial brands of this, is not a lot of lawyers were doing this. I really was blazing my own trail. And I'm actually excited to see more lawyers offering more content and more information, because this is such important information that entrepreneurs need to know. And so I think we're going to see a wave as these, and I say younger, I'm not that much older, but we're seeing younger people come out of law school and are embracing and approaching this video and content and podcast marketing and delivering of content. So I'm really excited to see the change, and it'll up the ante and force me to have to pivot and grow a bit more, but I'm ready for it. I'm excited for it.
There's that expression. I think we said you should always have two mentors. One mentor that's older than you in order to be pushing forward, and another mentor behind that's younger than you that's kicking you up the backside in order to keep moving ahead and keeping up with current practices.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is that the law in of itself is, no matter what country you're in, it's hard for non-lawyers to navigate and understand. And it really is a responsibility of lawyers to share that information. And the way I look at it is knowledge is power, and I want to give these powers to the entrepreneurs. And by giving more information, they're able to make confident decisions in your business, because I truly believe that as CEOs of our entrepreneurial journey, we should touch every task and recognize and understand the pain points and the strengths and the weaknesses of every task in our business. I'm not saying do it to a fault where it hurts you and you can't grow, but some of the best CEOs and the best owners and leaders and influencers are those that have touched every task in their business and can make knowledgeable decisions. One of the things that I've seen, and I do fault the legal field a bit to this, was there was this gated feeling to providing legal information. Of course, if you think about 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't even this onslaught of freemium information. Back then, you just had a couple paragraphs, maybe a crappy sales page, and then you had to buy into an ebook, right? We have this landslide of freemium information, and the legal field is so far behind that. But like I said, the younger ones, us young whippersnappers coming up, are starting to understand that this knowledge is power, and it's putting the power of the purchasing power in building of confidence in entrepreneurs. Because my whole perspective is, I can give all day long this free information, but at the end of the day, these entrepreneurs are still going to need me at some point. And they're better able going to make a decision to buy into me if they see that I know what I'm talking about. If I've put the power in their hands for them to understand and be educated in making decisions for their business. Because I see it a lot, and I struggle because I'm not just a lawyer. I've got this entrepreneurial mindset, but I see many entrepreneurs that come in the door to talk to us at the law firm. I'm like, this is great. But once I start asking them questions about why they did X, Y, and Z with another lawyer, they go, I don't know. I just passed it off to them. And yes, you should have confidence in the lawyer you're hiring, but you as the owner, as the CEO, should know why those decisions were made so that you can make the best decisions for the trajectory of your business. And so I think that's where all of this content creation and output is really important. And if some of you are listening, you're not a lawyer and you're not in the legal field, let me just take and apply it to your business. Whether you're selling a product or service, the more information that you can provide to your potential customer or to your audience, the more empowered they're going to feel, the more confident they're going to feel into you. At the end of the day, they can't get your service free. They can't just take your product off the shelf. So giving all of this content isn't necessarily giving it all away. There, you should always keep some, obviously, but I definitely embrace, if you can't tell, and love this whole freemium model of content that's put out there from a marketing perspective and just as a helping entrepreneur perspective.
So one of the things when I travel and speak at different conferences, and especially, a lot of creative entrepreneurs are really excited now about the potential opportunities for things like AI, for example. I was speaking at another conference not so long ago. It was actually lawyers and kind of barristers, and they're a little bit concerned about things like artificial intelligence and what it means to their role. So for you as someone who's both a lawyer and an entrepreneur, how are you feeling about technologies like AI? Do you think it's going to make the role that you do, the kind of work that you do, is going to make it hard? Is going to be more competition because you're competing with machines that do some of the work? Or do you feel that actually it's going to elevate the work that you do?
That right there, and you said it. It's interesting because I think it's easy for people to freak out and go, oh, I'm going to be replaced by computers. But at the end of the day, you cannot replace human interaction. There's no way that you can take and have a computer do what a person can do. So think about it from the context of a doctor. If you just had an electronic doctor come in the door, administer the medicine, and roll out while you're laying in the hospital bed, you're just going to feel as part of the process. You're not going to feel valued as a patient. And I think the exact same thing with lawyers. Yeah, you might be able to get the answers, but it's funny. I also feel like I'm a therapist some days, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but I'm helping my clients not just with the legal stuff. I'm helping them with the confidence building for them to make the right decisions, to evaluate business plans, and really nurturing them as individuals and as business owners. And I don't think that type of hands-on can ever be replicated. Even if you had a computer respond to the exact same words and things that I would say to a client, you're just not going to have that human interaction. You're just not going to have that connection. So like you said, I think it will separate the gap, and it will make the good lawyers even more in demand. It'll elevate us even more. I mean,
it's fascinating that part you talked about. The lawyers I've ever worked with, that I'm not paying them for drafting. I'm really paying them for that kind of, almost like that strategic advice. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, we have this opportunity for this licensing thing, and this is the agreement that we're looking at. And I love when you work with a great lawyer, because I actually find them very creative when you work with a great lawyer.
Yeah.
They can see all the opportunities. They can obviously see the downsides. They can inform you. They can have that conversation. And I think for a lot of legal things, maybe some obviously certain types of drafting, I can see AI coming along, but that human relationship that a client has with the lawyer, and sometimes it's in the most stressful of times when you're building a business, and sometimes when, slightly different times when maybe you're in the process of selling a business or deciding what to do. You've cashed out from a business. You're deciding what that next stage in your life and your entrepreneurial journey is going to be. I think that's when it's a lot of fun to actually be working with lawyers.
Think of it this way. We used to have phone operators, and then phone operators were replaced with these recordings that are automated, right? And how often, maybe it's just me, but I'm always banging my phone or yelling, one, I said one, because it doesn't fully get and understand. And I'm maybe frustrated about something that's going on with my banking, or I'm trying to file a warranty claim, and you just get more frustrated with technology. So it may be providing this automation and benefit to the company, but it is deteriorating the customer's experience. And so for all these reasons, I definitely don't think it's ever going to be able to fully replace it. Maybe I'll eat my words one day, but I keep circling back. And it's so funny because I was just writing this before I got on with you. I had gone from doing in-person teaching and consulting, and I had moved solely to this Skype/online because I was like, oh, that's what everyone wants. It's just easiest for me. But I have sat down and I dug through all our analytics, and I found that the individuals that I worked with one-on-one that I really showed a true investment to, they had a higher success rate in their own businesses and their output than those that purchase these online courses that they never fully go through it, or they fully don't understand it. Even if I've provided all the channels in the world for them to ask questions, the in-person activities and the in-person events won out. And so I actually hope that the online industry, obviously that's not going to go anywhere, but I would love to see a pendulum start swinging back to more of this in-person one-on-one educator and student relationships, as opposed to this very sterile and void online environment.
Yeah, I think it's that role that good lawyers do, where they act as a kind of guide, as an advisor guide, to be also say, listen, you don't have to worry about these things. I'll let you know, but these are not important. These are the critical things. These are the 5 clauses we really need to be discussing. So they can kind of pull that stuff. And that's difficult, because with a more technological, or even, I'm a huge fan of online courses, but having that one-on-one conversation, say, well, in your case of where you are in your journey, these are the things that are important at this stage. So in your own creative and entrepreneurial journey, can you tell us about a time when maybe you worked on something and you were giving it your heart and your soul, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out like you'd hoped? And more importantly, what were the lessons that you took from that experience?
So I've had a couple of projects over the years, different brands that I wanted to set up. And I'm not necessarily committed to saying that I gave my heart and soul, but I was looking in the context of what I've done, where I've set up one successful brand and I basically take the same process and procedures and set it up and package it differently, successfully multiple times. I've tried to enter into a couple of spaces in the exact same way, and it should have worked, right? Looking at success in the history, but it really was a failing that I decided to pull the plug on, wasted time, investment, and money, and that's okay because you learn. But a lot of it boiled down to is that I didn't truly look for voids in the market that I could fill. And that was what I had identified with these other very successful brands that I have. I had identified a true need and a true void. The ones that have failed were ones that were completely oversaturated, which doesn't mean you shouldn't enter a space, but I didn't take the next step to differentiate it in any way. I was trying to duplicate, not steal someone's idea, but I was essentially duplicating the same messaging and services and products that other people were doing and already dominating the space for, and it didn't allow me to grab any footing there at all. And so it was completely my fault. I kind of rested on this whole idea of, well, I've done it how many times, I should be able to do it here again. And the reality was it was just simple basics. This is stuff they teach you first year of business school. You have to look for a void. You have to look how to penetrate a market and how to differentiate yourself. And those 3 things there's really only been one major brand that I had tried to set up that I ended up pulling the plug on. And I had ignored all 3 of those. I think I had gotten probably a little cocky and a little complacent, and it's okay because I took all that content, was able to repackage it and put it into the existing brands. So all was not lost, but it definitely, so I share this to say I've been doing this for over a decade. And I am humble, even though I keep referring to them as successful. They're successful in my mind because my definition of success might be different than someone else's, but I should have been able to make it work, but I'm showing you my failings. I even didn't apply just the very core basic business principles and have had a failed brand along the way.
And as you were building all these brands, can you tell us about maybe a key insight or an aha moment, that light bulb moment when you went, okay, this is maybe the direction I want to be going with the work, all these kind of people I want to serve, or you just made some other kind of key insight that you had?
I think the aha moment that I also now seek to have, that's when I know a business is getting a foothold, is when people start referring your brand as the go-to. as the go-to in that space. When you start seeing, you know that your marketing efforts are paying off, and then you go, oh, I know my messaging's working. If I don't see that and I'm not gaining traction through word of mouth, because honestly, online marketing is great. All of that's awesome. You got to cast your net wide. But in order to drill deep, you really do need to have your audience talking for you and being marketers for you, essentially. And so my aha moment is when I'm referred to as the go-to, or when people say, without a doubt, this is the brand or the site that you need to reach out to. And so that's kind of my barometer now. I know that I'm doing good. And this is a high level barometer. I still look at other metrics and analytics, but that is kind of more of the, all right, if people are saying that I'm obviously doing something right, well, let's just beef up what we've been doing this whole time.
And if you go onto your site, obviously it has all these different brands and you've got some incredible resources there as well. And one thing I noticed though that you had in terms of other things, and this kind of goes to this idea of, obviously you built out some of these things. You've got really traction going on in your business as well. So you can really give back in a bigger way. I noticed one of the things is Archers Advocates that you do. So that intrigued me. Tell me about that project and how you kind of came into doing that type of work.
So I'm actually really glad that you asked me about this. This is a fairly recent, within the last 2 months. May 1st, my rescue puppy dog was stabbed to death in our front yard by an individual. I can't address too much because we still have the legal stuff going on, but going through that process of losing my best furry friend, and my kids seeing this tragedy, I recognize that pets are not really protected under the law. In fact, your cars and your homes have better protections under the laws than your pets do. And this obviously tore my heart apart, being on this other side of it now, grieving his loss and everything. And I decided to set up a nonprofit to help change that. There's other issues in the circumstance that I can't really divulge yet. I can't wait to tell the whole story one day, but there is great research that shows that individuals that do this to pets end up moving on to humans. And so the goal is to try to be on the ground floor and to prevent this ever happening and escalating. So Archers Advocates, it's interesting. I got it set up in the first week of his murder, and I can't credit myself for it. I do think that my decade plus experience as an entrepreneur, knowing how to set up the brand, get the messaging and everything going was helpful. But it was the connections of the people that I've been surrounded by in the entrepreneurial community who really came up and moved mountains. I mean, within 24 or 48 hours of his death, we already had people that had pulled legislation that had been tabled before. They were already redlining it, drafting new legislation so we could propose it again in the new term. And it was really incredible. And I share all of that extensive story with it because that showed me, it's interesting, that showed me the true testament of what entrepreneurs can do. I mean, it's amazing when you see someone build a multi-million-dollar brand to sell a product or service, but it's seeing this, how they dropped their businesses and they got in and they knew that I'm a very controlled person, as many entrepreneurs are. And that was the only thing that I can control in this horrible tragedy, was to try to make a change. And seeing entrepreneurs, take steps to help build me up and to build this nonprofit up and this movement up using their skills that they learned as entrepreneurs was incredible to me. So yeah, I'm so glad you asked about that, because I think it is super important that business is awesome. Business is great and I love it. And I felt like before this, I really felt like I was fulfilling my purpose in life, helping primarily other moms to be able to be around for their kids and have a flexible schedule and be able to be an entrepreneur. But now I'm on the next level. I'm I've done that. I'm still doing that, but now I can make even more of an impact. And I'm excited for the trajectory of that. I never in a million years thought I would be an animal activist or owner of a nonprofit. Well, I wouldn't say owner, but head of a nonprofit. And so I'm excited. It's on the ground floor, but we're growing.
Well, you should be applauded for that work. I think that's fantastic that you're doing that. You've taken obviously a very sad, terrible incident and you've actually turning it into a positive, which is going to help lots of other beings, human or not, in the world. So I think you should be celebrated. And I'm also looking forward to you seeing how you use some of those same skills, those content marketing skills that you've developed in your other parts of your business, and how that can be applied to the Archers Advocates work. So great job there as well.
Thank you.
You mentioned obviously you're putting out all this content all the time. You're an entrepreneur. Is there one online resource or a tool or a mobile app like Evernote, for example, that you find really, really useful in the work that you do?
So because I do have a team and multiple brands, Help Scout is super important for us to be able to do email and customer service management, writing of notes. We have workflows in there and can tag things. But when it comes to the actual content creation, we use Trello with some other integrations into like Google Calendar and WordPress and all that. So my team knows what I'm working on, or I know what they're working on at all times. We still have team meetings and everything, but this way we don't have to suck time away into a meeting. We can log on, see what someone's doing, make a comment. Trello has been pivotal for me. I've never really been a fan of Evernote, but to be honest, it's just because I've never sat down to really learn it. I just use old school Microsoft Word when I'm writing my blog posts, and then I upload them and have a team member put them all into WordPress for me.
Awesome. Well, I'll put those links to those tools there as well. And Trello is we're a big fan. If anyone listening to this podcast, we use Trello for the whole process flow for this as well. What about a book? Maybe recommend one book to our listeners, and also one album, one record to our listeners. What would they be?
So one book, if you guys haven't heard the common theme on this, it's about differentiating yourself. It would be Seth Godin's Purple Cow. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. The concepts in that book, they revolutionized me in how I viewed things. So Purple Cow by Seth Godin, and then an album. I don't know. I'm a Spotify, mix it up, listen to anything. Yeah.
Is there a particular playlist that you get? Because obviously I know you're very into kind of health and looking after yourself, and you've been an athlete as well. Is there a particular playlist that you kind of get going to when you kind of get out there, go to the gym, head out into the road?
There's a couple of workout ones. I really try to hit anything that's really high intense to get the heart rate going. I am a fan of doing throwback type music. So even the old like gangsta style rap, and that's kind of my jam.
Great. And I want you to imagine, just last question here, that you woke up tomorrow morning and you have to start from scratch. So you've got all the skills you've acquired over the years. But no one knows you, and you know no one. You have to really restart. What would you do? How would you restart? So when you said you would have nothing tomorrow, my heart literally stopped. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. I would, I'm glad you asked this question, because I fondly think about the first few years of entrepreneurship. I know it was a baptism by fire, stressful as all get out, but I learned the most that I feel like I've ever learned in the first few years, because I needed to make it. My family needed the money. And so honestly, I would take all the big top things that I've learned, much of what we talked about here, with the content marketing, et cetera, and I would just do it all again. I don't really try to rest on this idea that people already know. When I come into a new space, I operate under the assumption that they have no idea who I am. They have no idea that I have these other brands. And so I can get lazy sometimes, and then I'll have an audience member in a new brand go, who are you? And I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta lay the foundation again here. So just constantly putting it out there. And I think even if you've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, you should always approach. You never know what new audience member is seeing your stuff. So whether you're completely brand new and starting over from scratch, or you've been doing it for 20 years, always approach it like they've never heard about you before. And just to give them full context so they fully can understand you and your brand. And if people want listening to this just now, they want to maybe reach out to you or to start reading some of this great content that you've got, some of these great resources you've got, where's the best place for them to go and do that? So the mothership website is rachelbrenke.com. That's where the podcast and all the other sites are linked from there. I also have a legal checklist for entrepreneurs you guys can download, fill out. It's a great thing for you guys to revisit over and over. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about, you guys can find me either through that website, or I'm the only Rachel Brenke on social media. I'm more than happy to help interact. I do my own social media engagement, so you're not getting a team member, you will get me. So please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to discuss anything. Well, Rachel Brenke, thank you so much for sharing with us details about your creative life. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thanks for having me. Hey, James Taylor here again. And if you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.